to the Purple Rock Survivor podcast. I'm your host, John, and this is my co-host, Andy. And Andy, I have to tell you some very bad news. I think I have finally found an impression that I love more than your impression of Southerners. Tony's llama impression has now taken the top spot in my heart.
I don't even understand what you're saying. Maybe you should talk to me in llama.
Oh, no, I'm going to go ahead and patch in some audio of llama sounds instead of actually attempting them myself.
Is that, like, we've talked a lot in this podcast about all these great moves that Tony has done. Did that just enter, like, the top 5, the llama talk?
We had to pause the show and rewind it because we were laughing too hard. That was fantastic. It might have been one of my favorite moments this season.
And, like, we're going to talk about that for years to come, I think. And it was great because it also just seemed like it, like, completely came out of nowhere. Yeah, today an AV clubber reminded us of Cass's lie that she's an animal handler, that I think she's saying that she has, like, an alpaca farm or something. So I guess that's where Tony came from. But it's better just to think that Tony just trash talks people in llama when he gets frustrated, right?
Yeah, I liked it even more when I thought it was just some random non sequitur insult, and he's like, I'll show her. I'll pretend I'm a llama. Like, I didn't know where it came from, but I found it really amusing.
Well, it's great because Cass lied about it. She probably didn't know where it was coming from either. Like, why is this dude talking about llamas?
Yeah, I'm a lawyer. Oh, wait, no, I'm an animal handler.
So, I think that's a good place to start, that we're going to spend this podcast, almost unbelievably, talking a lot about Cass. This is the Cass podcast.
Yeah, this isn't going to be like the Jeffra podcast.
Where we didn't talk about it at all. We got a lot to unpack with Cass. Because,
yeah, we're actually going to discuss Cass.
She did a lot of things last night, and, where do we start? Where I'd like to start is her brilliant idea to cause chaos at camp. So Tony, comes to her with the idea that, we're in a final 3. I don't care what you and Wu were saying, I forgive you. And Cass, who last week decided not to vote against Tony and Trish, because she wanted to be in a final alliance with Tony, decides, this is my chance to blow it all up.
I really don't get it. She had a quote too. At this point in the game, you want to inspire paranoia and chaos or something as much as possible. And I'm sitting there thinking, maybe, but not you. You should not be doing that. You're not in danger.
Yeah, if you're Spencer, you want to do that. You were just told you're in the majority.
Yeah, you're going to the end. Why do you care if there's chaos and paranoia?
Yeah, I know. Like, before we even get into her moves, which are obviously all spring from that, it's like, I do not understand this thing you called thinking, Cass. Because literally she was being given the thing she wants, and she's decided, I gotta switch things up so I can get the opposite of what I want.
You know what, though? I will say this, and we'll eventually get to why later, but I think she's getting what she wants in the end.
Yeah.
Well, not the million, but she is getting to the end.
She probably guaranteed herself that. Not for the reasons she wants. But it's just like, nobody that's serious is actually giving Cass credit of being a player, I would hope. And this is exactly why. Her MO seems to be, good thing is presented to her. She gets herself into a good situation, and she finds her way out of it.
I guess her plan with going to talk to Wu was to blow up Tony's spot, which was successful, and it worked. But why was that her plan? What was the end goal there?
Yeah, I mean, I talked about this last week when we were talking, like, Cass seemingly made an alliance to flip things with Wu and Spencer. And it's like, but what's victory here? Victory is voting out Trish and Tony? Like, why was that a good thing for Cass? And she doubled down this week. So it's like she found at the end of the last episode, no, that's actually a mistake and I should get rid of Tash. Which she was right about. But then this week she's like, no, I'm gonna do that. And it's not about sound gameplay as much as she wants to say. Sound gameplay is going to the end with the people she thinks she could beat. I mean, we don't think, even last week, she think she could beat anybody, but she thought she could beat Tony and Trish. And she made actions and lots of moves this week to ensure that those weren't the people she's gonna go with. And I think it's just because being told what to do puts her off so much that she just has to do the opposite.
Really, I mean, we discussed at the beginning of the season how we thought Tony's moves were just baffling. Like, why are you just throwing everything against the wall? I don't understand. Do you have a coherent strategy here at all? He did, clearly. It's Cass that's throwing things against the wall. Like, but it's not, though. It's a very predictable thing she's doing. And it's like what you said, like, what she wants gets handed to her, but it didn't get handed to her in the manner that she would prefer, and so she wants to blow it up.
Yeah, and like, obviously Tony didn't handle the situation very well. With a player like Cass, you want to make her feel like an active participant, and instead of being told this is what's what. And also, Tony should never have shared that level of information with Cass. That was just a complete mistake by his part. But I can't understand the thinking. It's like, if you're at the final three, and somebody tells you, we're in the finals together, like, why would you work against that? I don't understand.
Yeah, at that point, yeah, it's not even really a trust issue. It's just kind of like locking this down. Like, oh, we're going to have numbers, so it doesn't matter, barring immunity wins. This is how it's going to be.
And like, I think the points that she was making is, I'm going to show everybody what a jerk Tony is. Because that's what she thinks. If she goes at the end against Tony and makes him look like a jerk, then that's the thing. But, you know, you can do that without destroying camp life and, you know, realigning yourselves with the two most sympathetic players left in the game in Wu and Spencer. You just tell people that at the final tribal council.
Right. And if there's any impression that Tony's a jerk, trust me, the people on the jury have already gotten the impression. They've clearly gotten it about Cass.
Yeah, but it's like, if she needed that more ammunition, wait until after Tony's actually voted Wu off. And then just, like, spill the beans. You get to do that. In fact, you don't have to wait till the final tribal council. You can start that at, like, the next to final tribal council. Because at that point, it's too late for them to, you know, switch their vote to you anyway. But it's like, she almost went home last night. Like, I don't want to hear anything about Cass's big successful move. If Tony wanted Cass to leave the game, she would have left the game last night. And at the beginning of the episode, that was the last thing he wanted.
Yeah, and then at the end of the episode, it was clearly the last thing he wanted, because she became so much more objectionable that now you just can't leave her out of the final tribal with you. Like, you need her next to you in final tribal.
Yeah, so, well, let's talk about what you did at tribal council. That was some, just brilliant gameplay, huh? Just saying some of the nastiest things that a person could say in front of all of the people who are judging you.
Calling Trish Skeletor, and I mean, well, although in her defense, Tony did call her anorexia earlier, but Trish seemed to enjoy that for some reason.
Yeah, well, she was getting a fed of pizza, so who wouldn't?
Well, that's true. You know what? You can insult me if you want to give me food too, which you regularly do, by the way.
Yeah, I'd be like, haha, here's the pizza you order alone, loser.
Oh, that's how Jeff Probst insults me too. Anyway, so she calls her Skeletor, and kind of a hit below the belt there. And again, if the jury didn't already think you were a jerk, which they do, you're just hammering the point home. Now, like, regardless of if you're right or not, and she's probably not, you seem like a jerk. It's not a good sign for her when the jury starts nodding and smiling when Trish is like, I finally had enough of Cass and I had to yell at her.
Like, Cass is a trial lawyer. Does she not ever look over at the jury box and see how her arguments are being received? Like, that's the thing, right? They don't just make that up for TV. Like, they're in the same room, right?
I've seen enough of Law and Order. I'm pretty sure that's how it goes.
But she just cannot read that room whatsoever. Just so convinced of her own superiority. And what's interesting is, like, she's going to be even more smug next week. Because in her mind, her plan worked. And it's just like, you have to stop thinking, like, why do you want that? Why do you want to further the game of Wu and Spencer? I do not understand this. Just like, why did she want to flip on her majority of 6 to go with these other people?
Well, we should clarify, too, because before we start getting hateful responses, that was a joke about Cass's real-life job. We understand that this is a game, blah, 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 blah.
Well, that one does actually, like, I don't think she's a horrible person in real life. I legitimately, like, part of the skill of her everyday thing is, like, looking over at people who are casting judgment and viewing their reactions and basing arguments accordingly. Like, that's the, like, I always dislike when people's like, oh, because I'm a baker, I'm gonna be really great at Survivor. But that seems like a direct parallel. Like, in her workday life, she's supposed to look over at people and try to judge what they are thinking and how they are receiving her client. And she seemingly cannot do that here. I think what's happened because, she's done so many things, and because, she said some aggressively mean things that really put people off on the internet, and you and I are the type of jerks that would be like, that was kind of funny.
Oh, we favorited some of her awful things she said.
Yes, but I think people are forgetting just how bad she's been throughout the whole game. I think people are like, oh, she's doing some good strategy, just a terrible social player. It's like her social game is so bad that they're like, can't admit all the other parts. But, I just want to remind everybody that Cass is the person whose strategy was to go to the person she's voting out and say, I think I'm going to vote you out tonight.
Yeah, it's been a long time, but she did do that, and it's easy to forget.
More than once. She did it with Sarah too, And then she's also somebody who's been pretty hapless at every challenge. So, like, if you talk about the three aspects of winning Survivor, she's failed pretty spectacularly at all of them. And, I think she's gonna make the finals.
Oh, she's definitely gonna make the finals. Do we want to go into why?
Because getting back to that tribal council, there's no way you sit at that tribal council, see the way everybody's reacting to Cass, see how easy it is to get Cass to just keep shoveling and say, yeah, I'm voting her out.
Yeah, the only person that I could see not taking Cass to Final Tribal is Wu, and that's just because he has no concept of how to play the game. Even him, I'm thinking, he's probably 60% would take Cass to the final.
Well, I mean, he's already thrown in his lot with her, right? And I don't think it would be a huge leap or backflip for Wu, as it were, to decide that he would rather go with her than Spencer. So, hey, we're talking about Wu. We love talking about Wu. He also made a decision last night. He was previously in Tony's alliance. He learns from Cass, maybe not so much. But after all that drama, it's pretty clear that no matter what Tony's original plans were, Wu is now in his plans. But he decides to go the other way and vote out Trish. Is this the right move for Wu? Is it the wrong move? Is it basically neutral?
Well, I mean, we've been saying all season that Wu has a really keen eye for strategy, and he always waits for the perfect opportunity to strike. Just seizes the opportunity, and I think this was just another, I can't get through this without laughing.
It was the people that talked to Wu last, and that's what happened.
Exactly. He gave a blank stare to someone else, and gave a blank stare to Cass and Spencer, and I guess the blank stare he gave to Cass and Spencer meant, I'm voting with you. Who knows?
Whoa, what are your thoughts? Yeah, I'm thinking, what are your thoughts?
That was a direct quote. What are your thoughts? Yeah. That was his quote.
Now, to be completely fair to Wu, I get it. I get that if you thought you were really in tight with some people and then you learned otherwise, and Tony did, again, a poor job of convincing Wu that, Cass was just making up stuff. Because basically, Tony at that point was just, defending himself and arguing with Cass. Not, I was lying to you, or she's lying to you now, Wu. He pretty much confirmed that what he had said was true. So I get, if you're Wu, the feeling of betrayal. I mean, he looked like somebody had kicked his puppy.
He really did.
And then wanting to do something about it. Not wanting to, continually be fooled by this guy. But it's kind of like the Cass argument. At the end of the day, do you want to be aligned with Spencer?
I think actually, I'm jumping ahead because I'm getting into what Tony did, but I kind of think that Tony must have had some conversation with Wu where he basically said oh yeah, I did say that to Cass, but that's also because I'm taking you and Cass to the end. I'm going to flip on Trish. So I think that was part of what sold Wu on taking out Trish. I don't think it was just Spencer and Cass that convinced him.
All right, so then under that framework, it was a fine move by Wu then.
It was fine. I mean, Wu's best move would always get a shoulder shrug, because are you really convinced that it was something he spearheaded?
No, but he, at the end, needed to make a decision. I think there was a point in time last night where if he would have said to Tony, yeah, okay, let's vote out Cass, us final three, then that's probably what it would have happened. And I think it's because of Wu's equivocations and because of, what Tony was able to pick up on that he realized that Wu wasn't going to go that way, and he then had to decide what he's going to do. Is he going to save Trish, or is he going to, get rid of Trish?
See, I actually think that if Wu was debating, Tony probably gave him the hard sell and said, listen, we need Cass at the end next to us because she can't get any votes. And he did sort of say that in this episode. I just think that he reinforced that later on in some scene that we didn't get to see. And that's what convinced Wu.
Alright, so let's get to it. When I watched, the final thing, and he gets up and just basically kind of gives Jeff the idol, his regular idol, to give him some level of protection, but he's like, I don't need it. And he was right. I was like, why are you not giving that to Trish? And I typed up things in my notes that was a mistake, that, he would be able to, maintain control and still keep his idol. And it wasn't, and I finished watching the episode, and then as soon as I finished writing that note, I'm like, wait a second. Who did Tony vote for? And it's like I watched, but I was just listening to Trish, and I wasn't really watching what people put up on their parchment, because I kind of didn't think that there was a reason. I thought I knew who everybody voted for. So I had to go back in my mental catalog. It's like, I think he voted for Trish. So, yeah, Tony voted for Trish.
Yeah, which was a shock to us, too, because my wife was, we finished watching the episode, and she's like, wait a minute. They only showed 3 votes. And then I'm like, oh my God, you're right. The only person that voted for Cass was Trish. And so we went and checked it out, and we're like, oh my God, Tony flipped on Trish. And so what was your initial reaction to that? My
initial reaction was, what?
I think that's our standard initial reaction to Tony's moves this season.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably my next one was, Tony being Tony again. So, yeah, I was ready to talk about all the reasons why he didn't play his idol for Trish, but now we actually just have to talk about why did he vote for Trish? I think you have some thoughts, so I want to hear them.
I do. And actually, I have to give some credit to our buddy Matt, too, because I think he was sort of on the same page with me on this.
Oh, and we should also clarify, I think there might be a video on CBS Survivor site that explains Tony's thinking from what I've heard. Neither of us have watched that video, so this is just pure speculation on our part.
Yeah, we're totally lazy podcasters who don't seek additional information. We just like to talk from our butt.
I'll watch it later.
That makes one of us. So Matt's theory was that Tony is basically, he's not going to be able to hide behind, I tried to save you. Because he could have saved her. He had an idol. So it's not like he can hide behind that excuse. His only option is to just own up to it and be like, listen, you had to go. There was nothing I could do. Or not even there was nothing I could do. Like, I needed you out. It was, you or Cass, and I needed Cass more. The end. And I think that's probably pretty correct. I think he's going to, assuming he gets to the final tribal, if he's talking to Trish, he's going to say, sorry, it would have been Spencer, but Spencer was immune, and I needed to take Cass to the end because she's rabidly objectionable. And I think that she'll appreciate that.
I think the Cass thing is legit. I think he, if it wasn't a last-minute decision at Tribal Council, even before that, it's like, I need to go to the final with Cass. I just need to suck it up a few more days, after his initial anger had passed. And I understand his initial reaction to wanting to vote Cass, besides just an emotional level. It's at the point where, she keeps messing up his game, so she's got to go. But in his mind, he's probably only 2 votes away, because I'm guessing they're probably operating under the idea that it's a final 3. We now have confirmation it'll be a final 2, so we don't have to keep talking that way. But if he wanted to keep Cass, he still could have kept Trish, because they could have voted out Wu, which he was talking about at the beginning of the episode. So why Trish instead of Wu?
I went through a whole breakdown of the pros and cons of this, and basically the net gain that he gets here is that he's guaranteeing himself a vote in Final Tribal, because Trish is going to vote for him. Wu is going to vote for Tony in Tribal Council, or Final Tribal. The only one he can't be certain of is Cass. So he doesn't want to send Cass to the jury because he's not sure of how she'll vote. So instead, he keeps Cass in the game, A, because she's a goat, and B, because he doesn't know how she would vote at the end. So initially when I saw the move, I was like, oh man, what was he doing? That's crazy. But, within 20 minutes of watching the episode and talking through it, I was like, oh no, that was the right move. And again, Tony's probably been sitting on that island 24/7 thinking of this move, so I'm sure he had thought of this already.
Yeah, but I guess, Mike, I'll ask the question again because you failed to answer it.
You're talking about
why?
Wu.
Yeah, why not vote out Wu? That was
Okay.
what he seemed to be opening this 3 days with the idea that was going to happen. If he gives Trish his idol and they just vote for Wu, in fact, he doesn't even need to tell Trish. If he gives Trish his idol and he just votes for Wu, then it's a tie between Cass and Wu, and then the revote it could be Wu. Why not Wu?
Okay, so here's the reason you don't vote Wu out. Tony's real threat now is Spencer. He needs to get Spencer out. The only way he's going to be able to do that is if Spencer is not immune. And of his two closest allies, being Trish and Wu stands a better chance of beating Spencer at an immunity challenge, at least from the ones that we've seen. Because if you saw how Trish performed in that challenge last night, it was not good. So, again, both of those people would give Tony a vote in the end, so they're mostly interchangeable. But keeping Wu has the added bonus of giving you a chance to beat Spencer for immunity.
All right, yeah, I was just asking because I had the exact same thought. I think, yeah, in an ideal world, Spencer goes home tonight, then maybe Wu. But now he really legit has to worry about the fact that Spencer might never be able to go home. And yeah, he needs to keep Wu around, so I think he needed to patch things up with Wu, who is clearly very angry at him. Also, it's possible that as the days went by and seeing the way that, Wu was processing things, maybe the idea that Wu is a big threat in front of a jury is becoming less and less of one. Especially once you get to that final tribal council and Trish is arguing her case that she hasn't made any enemies with any of the jury. Tony might have already come to that conclusion himself. And I think another reason is he can't play an idol for Trish because he really needs to sell the idea that the special powers of his idol is that it's a Final Four idol. And it's easier to do that when he says, when he can go back and is like, I didn't play my idol for anyone but me because I needed them both.
Right. I mean, he mentioned that to Trish, that his idol was going to be good through Final Four, so he needed both of them. Do you think that play is going to work with the people still left in the game?
I'm dying to find out. I think it's an awesome, awesome idea. I think it's kind of another example of the way that every element of the game, Tony's looking for another edge. Right down to when, him and Wu went to the other tribe to just, steal some stuff. He's like, I'm going to do one more thing. I kind of think it will. Like, why wouldn't it? If you're those other people, why wouldn't you believe that the special powers is Final Four? That seems as much of a logical explanation as anything else they could have imagined.
So further bolstering that case, Probst did not mention that was the final tribal council where you could use an idol, which I think generally he does, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think he says that generally when it's the last time you can do it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously at that point it's wallpaper, so it's hard to remember whether he has every time. But I think what happened is Tony did it before Probst went into his spiel. He put out his lie, and Jeff was kind of like, let's see how this one plays out. And he wasn't gonna, blow up Tony's spot, because generally Jeff won't. As long as somebody's not, clearly violating rules.
Yeah, and I actually like that about Probst, that, he won't yank the rug out from under your lies. If you make a lie and he's like, this will make for interesting TV, he's not going to sell you out.
Yeah, he learned that lesson early on when he almost blew up Richard Hatch's spot with the Alliance. And he was just like, whoa, I can't do that. I need to step away. I need to let the players do their thing. I think that's also another reason why, and I believe this, that he stopped watching dailies. But yeah, he didn't, he actually wanted to, I think, talk about Johnny Fairplay's lie because it kind of at first really bothered him. But then he took a step back and he was like, hey, that's kind of interesting. It was the same. Abby Maria pretended that she had a clue to an idol she didn't have. Well, players constantly are pretending that they have idols when they don't. So I think, once Tony put that out there before Jeff was like, if anybody has an idol, now's the time to play it and this is your last opportunity to do so. And at this point, I think the show they were the ones that set up the parameter that the special powers are a secret. And in doing so, they presented an opportunity for a guy like Tony to take.
And again, I think he totally sees that opportunity. I love the move. I do think it's going to work just like you do. I think they're going to fall for it. And especially just because, wasn't it a different color too? Wasn't it like golden or something?
It was gold,
Yeah. So they're probably like, oh crap, it is whatever he says it is, because he's the only one who can tell them what it does, since, again, like you said, production kept it a secret from the rest of them.
Yeah, and I'd like, if I was on there, I'd believe it. Like, I wouldn't even question it. It's like, okay, now I know what the special power is. And that sucks. Like, it sucks that it's Final Four, but, like, there have been idols before that were being able to play to Final Four. I think people are getting misunderstood about this. The last 2 times that an idol was as powerful as the one that Tony's, like, legit powers are, those were playable to Final Four. So, as bad as the Tyler Perry idol is, it's actually a little less powerful than it used to be. But Tony is pretending the opposite. And like, if you're Spencer, if you're like the student of the game, he might be, even if he knew it was a one that you could play after the vote, which he doesn't, you'd be like, oh yeah, Final Four, that figures. And maybe even you use that as the extrapolation of, oh, I think we're dealing with the final 2 here.
And I do think that they've caught on to the final 2 thing. I mean, that we've actually seen mention of it. I think Cass mentioned it last week. I believe there's been some secret scenes maybe where they've mentioned it as well. I think they're kind of on to the idea that there's a final 2 this time.
I think they're on to the idea that it's a possibility, but you still see people talking about final 3 in that. But I think, yeah, they're twigging to the idea that, planning for a final 3 isn't necessarily enough. Which might have also led to Tony's decision making. At this point, yes, Spencer now has a few more immunities. And also he needs to protect himself at Final Four with his idol bluff. And like I just said, I think that he didn't waste his idol on Trish tells them that he was planning on using his other idol the very next week. So one other thing happened last night that I kind of wanted to talk about because I found it interesting, and that was the immunity challenge. So Tony comes out like gangbusters, does really well in the first few segments, and then gets to the slide puzzle. And he admits it himself later, this is not his gig. He just starts throwing everything together as fast as he can, just thinking that if I just attack this aggressively enough and move enough pieces, eventually the solution will present itself. Meanwhile, Spencer falls back and has to kind of, dig his way from behind, steps back, calmly does it, and then, finds the solution and wins.
You're gonna go metaphor here, aren't you?
I think that puzzle was a complete metaphor for this season. Like, there are 2 people that are capable of winning this season, and 2 people only. Next week we're gonna find out whether it's Tony or it's Spencer. And we just saw last night there are 2 different gameplays in one puzzle. What do you think?
Not a bad metaphor. I will say though that I enjoyed the other challenge, the mud challenge, because wasn't that a throwback to season 1? Or didn't they do that way back when?
I think they've done variations. I thought you were going to go with what I wrote in my first note while watching the episode. Couldn't they have done this challenge when Morgan was still in the game?
I was going to keep that thought to myself because I've promised that we won't keep objectifying Morgan. But I will say that I was very amused in that challenge when, or actually, I guess it was after the challenge when Cass threw up the Final Fantasy looking mohawk thing.
Yeah.
That made me laugh.
That was great.
She's got the mud in her hair and throws it up. She looked like, seriously, straight out of a Final Fantasy game.
Yeah, but just Tony aggressively moving stuff around at a frantic pace has been what he's done all season. And so that was the first time that it hasn't worked out for him. So.
Yeah. It might not be the last. I guess we'll find out next week. All right, let's bring in a guest this week. We've had the annoying college-age males on, and it's time to present a different demographic. We're once again pulling one of our AV Club friends. Actually, up until this week, the leader in our Survivor Fantasy League, Violina, but we're going to call her Heather. Heather, welcome to the show.
Hi, glad to be here.
Well, yeah, I forgot that you were beating me up until this week because I never really considered you a threat.
Well, that's okay because I never considered myself a threat either.
All right, well, yes, we're happy to have you on the show. As always, we like to find out what is it that you like about Survivor? Why do you watch this show and listen to podcasts and chat about it on the internet with strangers?
Well, I think what I love about it is just that no matter how many seasons there are and all these people who come into the show and they're convinced that they know exactly what they need to do to win, it never winds up turning out that way. And you can never account for human nature and people being crazy and insane. And it just never ceases to just be fun to watch.
And how long have you been watching?
I actually saw it from the first season. I was in between my freshman and sophomore years of college, so that shows my demographic in terms of age. And I stopped watching for a while because I was in college and, I wasn't...
Doing things?
Yeah, I was kind of doing things, a little busy. And then when I was in my first job after college, a bunch of people at work were talking about Survivor, and that was when they did the All-Star season, which I know not many people are a fan of. And they started doing a pool for it, of all things. And I was like, hey, let's see what's going on in the world of this show again. And then I got hooked again, and here I am.
There's nothing that gambling can't make more fun.
That is so true.
Other than crippling addiction.
Did you stick around since All-Stars, or have you skipped any seasons?
I think I've pretty much seen most of them since All-Stars, at least. I think so.
And what was your favorite season?
I feel like I have to go back to Samoa because I don't remember watching and being so pumped up week to week to just sort of see what was going to happen because I just didn't know what to expect at that point. And it was funny because it was the same friend of mine who told me about the show back in 2000 had not been watching. And I remember going to lunch and talking to her about it and describing the antics of Russell Hantz. And she was just cracking up listening to it. And I actually got her sucked back into the show. And she actually joined the Fantasy League this year.
Awesome.
All right, you're recruiting for us.
So I sucked it. I pulled in my husband and one of my best friends from high school into the Fantasy League.
Nice.
And now you can pull them into listening to our podcast. Do you have any certain players that have been your favorites over the year?
Well, I know it's a person that a lot of people are a fan of, but I look at Kim, and I'm just like, she was casting some sort of voodoo magic on people because she just always knew the right thing to say. And I know the cast was a little weak, but in a lot of ways, but I have nothing but respect for that. And then I am a geeky, awkward person, so I always had a soft spot for Cochran, and especially during the second season when he actually started really playing.
Well, we knew there was something we liked about you. Any fan of Kim is welcome on this show. Always those accusations, everybody she played with was weak. It's like, well, can we give her some credit for that? She made them weak. Like, those might have been players that would have stepped up and done other things if she didn't control every aspect of their day and thought process.
And my counterpoint to that is always, did you watch Redemption Island, Boston Rob's coronation season? Because, come on.
I did, and it was kind of boring. Every week was just kind of like watching him just mold these people into his image, basically. And that was perfectly impressive, and I'm sure that extra $1 million was very useful to him and his family. And I don't know, what do they have, 4 kids now?
Mm-hmm.
But, as a season, it was perfectly entertaining, but not up there on the thrilling scale.
So, where does this season rank on the thrilling scale? How have you felt about this season so far?
Well, aside from the Tyler Perry idol, which I think I've been on the record as really, really hating, other than that, I feel like it's mostly a gimmick-free season, and I'm kind of really enjoying that. And I feel like we're back to that point where people are playing with each other, and they don't have preconceived notions about how they've played the game before. I mean, of course, everyone's judging each other, but it's the old-fashioned way where it's just, do I trust this person? Do I not trust this person? Are you a cop? Are you a construction worker? It's just good old-fashioned fun, and it's like back to basics to me. I've been really enjoying it.
Yeah, I think it kind of proves an adage that we've said a lot of times, because this was supposed to be loaded with gimmick seasons, right? They had the 3 tribes, divided them by attributes. They put in the Tyler Perry idol, which ultimately was meaningless. Its actual power is done, and it never did what it was supposed to do. But
well, we'll see.
Yeah, well, I think it might still have one more thing to do. We talked about it earlier, but it's not, canceling any votes. But Survivor lives and dies on whether the casting's good. And if you got a good cast, it doesn't matter if you have a gimmick or if you have a bad gimmick. And if you have a bad cast, no gimmick in the world is going to save it.
Oh, exactly. I mean, I've said many times that Token Teens is one of my favorite seasons because that cast was just amazing.
Heather, who on this cast have you become a fan of?
Well, I was expecting to hate Tony, and I know a lot of people actually do hate Tony, but again, this is something I also said on the AV Club, but I feel like if he was being mean for the sake of being mean, kind of like Russell Hantz was, for example, which is the comparison people like to make, then maybe I'd be a little bitter about it, but he's playing the game. He's not being particularly nasty or mean-spirited towards anyone. I mean, he's fibbing and lying and twisting things, but not in a nasty way. And, again, it's entertaining, like you were saying in last week's podcast. He's doing something different. He's playing the game in a way it hasn't really been played before, and I've been really impressed with that. And on the flip side, I don't have the hate for Spencer that I think a lot of people do. I don't think, I can't argue with anybody saying that, maybe he hasn't made very many big moves, but, I think if he won, I would be okay with that because there's something to be said for just kind of being at the bottom of the barrel the whole time and surviving. I mean, it's Survivor. And, I'm with you guys. And again, I don't know if this is the podcast or on the AV Club. It's all blending together for me at this point. But I agree with the idea that there's not really much in the way of an undeserving winner. You had to do something right to get to that $1 million and get people to vote for you.
Yeah, and to be clear, I wouldn't hate a Spencer win. My main concern is seeing how Tony's game plays out. And especially now, I don't see a way that Spencer can be in a final 2 against Tony. So I'm only going to get one. I can only see either Spencer winning or the answer to the Tony question. And I'd prefer to see how Tony's story plays out.
Absolutely. I'm with you though. It's a more interesting story.
Yeah. Nothing against Spencer. He's done okay. Nothing amazing, but I would like to see the Tony story play out versus see Spencer's underdog win.
Yeah, I'd have to say with the exception of certain people like Brandon and maybe Colton and some of these other players that, clearly have severe issues and just don't know how to exist with other human beings, for lack of better words. I generally don't get attached to these players in a way where I'm judging them as human beings. To me, it's a game and it's entertaining and it's fun and that's pretty much as far as I take it.
So where does Cass fall in there? Is she one that you're okay with, or is she more on the crazy Philip Brandon Hance scale?
I feel like she just has delusions of grandeur. She thinks she's an amazing player, and she thinks that she's making all the right moves, and she genuinely thinks it, and she's going to get to that end and be somebody's GOAT and just genuinely be shocked. And it's more the delusion, so I feel like I can't really be angry at her because I just kind of feel bad. I feel kind of sad that she's just so off.
So you agree with us that she has no chance of winning?
Oh yeah, I think I was with you about 4 or 5 weeks ago on that.
Well, to be fair, a lot of people have delusions of grandeur and different impressions of their own game when they play Survivor. We see one specific edit, but yeah, Cass definitely falls in that lack of self-awareness category, at least given the edit we've seen.
But even beyond the edits, we've seen the jury, right? It's how do you not see that, Cass, and see the way people have been reacting to you and think, everything's coming up, Cass?
I mean, she gave Trish the finger. I mean, really? In front of the jury. What did she expect to gain from that? I think she thought she was in such a position, and she was such the victim, which is exactly what Trish was saying, that everyone was just going to sort of be on her side automatically.
Yeah, and when people are going after Cass, there's not a lot of people stepping in. It's whoa, that was too far, Trish, or, too far, Spencer, or too far, Morgan. Everybody's kind of yeah, that sounds good, So she doesn't seem to have a lot of people rallying to her side. And for a normal person playing a social game, that would be maybe a clue.
Well, to be fair, Spencer probably didn't know who Skeletor was.
Well, when you start to get 3, 4, 5 people thinking you're terrible, maybe that's a pattern.
Yeah, but I just don't even think Cass even realizes it that many people have a problem with her.
There's a good chance that her default setting is, if you have a problem with me, clearly the problem is yours.
I think she may soon find out how many people have a problem with her, though.
So I think we all agree that Cass has, there's nobody on this season that she could beat in front of a jury. So that's kind of I wanted to open up the question bigger. Is there anybody in the history of Survivor that Cass could beat in the final tribal? So I wanted us all to kind of pick a name, and then we will decide whether Cass could actually beat this person in front of a jury or not. And since you're the guest, Heather, I thought I'd let you throw out the first name.
Well, the first name I thought of was Colton.
That's a tough one. What do you think, John? Could Cass beat Colton?
Yes, I would vote for Cass over Colton.
What? See, I think if Colton could somehow manage to get in front of a final tribal or final jury, he would have probably done a good amount of things to get himself there, right? He had people on his side in One World in a way that Cass never has. That's a tough one. That's a coin toss. I'm going Colton.
No. Colton's a pretty deplorable human being.
Yes, but that's what we got to see. No, that's true. Everybody thought he was deplorable even there, too. Well, there we go. So that's the line. Cass needs to go against Colton in a future season.
Oh gosh, please no.
It might be the season that breaks us. John, can you beat that?
I will go with Philip Shepard.
See, I gotta say, Philip wins in a final jury with Cass.
You think the special agent beats her?
Yes, he has already gotten one vote in a final jury situation.
That is one more than she will get.
I don't think Cass is going to get that. I think people just are, like, bemused by him, right? Like, I don't know, like, some people obviously hate him. I think other people are like, that crazy Philip. So if he was somehow against Cass, they'd be like, we hate her, and okay, Philip, you entertained us from time to time.
To be fair, Philip's one vote came from Ralph. We're not even positive that it was for Philip because it was for Philite. That might have been the way that Ralph spells Boston Rob. Who knows?
But, like, he had a strong alliance in Caramoan. And he, like, fell on his sword to protect them. Unlike Cass, who will flip on anybody at any time.
Was it his alliance, though? I feel like you're rewriting history.
I'm not.
That wasn't his alliance.
What happened in Caramoan? You tell me how I'm wrong here. He gave them all names, John. It was his alliance.
Oh, well then it's clearly his alliance.
Well, was it Francesca's alliance?
It was the wine and cheese alliance.
Because what I remember is, he wanted Francesca gone and she was gone. Like, he dictated several votes in that season.
Sure.
He was targeted by the three amigos.
Okay, well, let's get a third opinion. Heather, back me up here. Can Cass beat Philip?
Philip would absolutely beat Cass.
Oh.
Because, I mean, he's kind of kooky and out there, but he was kind of harmless, Like, I remember when everyone was arguing with me that, with the whole Brandon-Philip brawl was basically happening, and people were going, oh, well, Philip was kind of poking the hornet's nest. I'm like, no, Philip was kind of a little nutty, but he was harmless nutty. Like, he was sitting there. I have a lot of memories of him just sitting on the beach and people just coming up to him and, well, who was it who everyone kept talking to, and we were like, stop talking to Dawn, right? And we were like, stop talking to Dawn, and Dawn would run over like this little puppy dog and just tell him everything, and he would just decide who was going out next. And, he was playing the game, and he was playing it without a lot of the lying and the backstabbing and the nastiness that gets a jury bitter.
And also, if you just kind of hear the way that, like, former survivors talk about Philip, there's, like, a level of affection in their eye rolling. Like, oh, that Philip. That crazy Philip. But there isn't, like, that Philip. Like, there's not the anger that Cass is still getting on Twitter by her tribe mates currently.
Oh, I guess you have not read Corinne's timeline or any responses from her to Twitter.
Corinne didn't get along with somebody. Well, that's a surprise. Like, she's spoken warmly about, like, 3 people she's played with in the past.
That is true. So I guess the bar is somewhere between Philip Shepard and Colton for a Cass victory.
All right. Who'd win, Cass or Russell Hantz? Because we've always kind of said that there's no way that Russell Hantz wins in front of a jury because he so aggressively pisses people off. But Cass is doing the same thing. And I almost wonder if they're together, it's like the jury would just...
They'd quit.
Hate him so much. Yeah, and it's like, I hate you both, but then maybe at that point, the hatred balances each other out, and they're like, well, Russell did stuff that, from a less deplorable human being we could respect. So I think Cass loses to Russell Hantz.
I mean, Cass did stuff too.
But yeah, here's the difference. Russell, for one, he was always fairly loyal to his alliance. Often it was just because he didn't have much other choice. But he kind of stuck with, his people, as long as those people didn't include Daniel DiLorenzo. Cass obviously flips on anybody who she aligns with. But, like, I think the difference is, like, Russell's moves you can point to and it's like, well, he did that to put himself in a better position to win. Whereas Cass's moves seem to be the exact opposite. Cass's move seems to be, I'm gonna make a power move that takes me from a, strong position to a weaker one. And then Russell might have, he finds idols. Cass does not. Russell wins the odd immunity. Cass usually finishes near the end. Like, there's no good things to point to. So I know the point was me to find somebody that Cass could beat in the final 2. I'm not sure there is anybody.
Heather, do you think she beats Russell or not?
I think Russell wins. You almost took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say, you have Cass sitting there going, I'm going to go from the bottom of this alliance to the bottom of that alliance. What did she ever gain from anything other than just pissing people off? And Russell was playing, and he was playing hard, and he was calling the shots for a long time, and he paid the price for being that loud vocal person who was calling the shots and seeming responsible for everyone else's demise, in some case in a nasty way.
But, Russell never gave anybody the finger on the way out, so I'm going Russell. So then we have to think of, other really bad jury performers that never seem like they'll be able to win. And on the other side, is this the person that Amanda Kimmel could finally beat?
In a landslide.
Or would she just choke that bad with when somebody just gives her the first question of, Amanda, why did you take Cass to the final tribal council? And she just starts crying and then doesn't know what to say, and everybody's just I've lost respect for you again, Amanda. We gotta vote for Cass.
No, because here's what the questions would be. Amanda, smile for me. Okay, you got my vote. The end. They would not grill Amanda.
Alright, could Cass beat Lil?
Oh, God. Heather, do you remember Lil?
Which season was that?
Pearl Islands.
That was Pearl Islands, and that might actually fall into your gap. Well, if we kind of operate on the idea that Lil might have had a chance against Johnny Fairplay.
Yeah, I think Lil beats her.
Yeah, and then I guess the other question is, does Lil get there through another Outcast twist? Or, now it's straight up, she's come back for her All-Star appearance. And they're never gonna do that again. So now, Lil would be legitimized. I think she wins in a sweep.
I think you'd need to put quotation marks around the word star in that All-Star season.
Yeah, what's the opposite of star? How about Clay from Thailand? Clay from Thailand was I think the ultimate GOAT for the longest time. He got 4 votes.
So that was my counter. I thought of him too, but he actually got votes against Heidik. So I think Clay beats her.
Alright, and then, the final of the kind of the terrible finalists that I could think of. This one might be close. Dreams.
I did not watch Dreams season, but I'm aware of Dreams. That could be close. I'll let Heather answer this one.
He's the one who promised Yule Man, right?
Yowman the car, yeah. And then said, you know what? I'll just take the car and vote you out.
Yes. Oh, man. That's fuzzy in my memory, but that's tough, actually.
Now, here's what I do remember in Fiji, because I remember far too much about everything, that, there was a time when people were like, oh, Dreams might, he had the sob story, right? He was homeless. And then you go up against Cass the bully, and presumably Dreams has learned something as to not, make deals that he can't cash in. I kind of think that Dreams beats Cass too.
Well, here's the way I think that Cass could beat him. If Dreams once again won a car or acquired a car in a challenge and then used that car to run over the jury, then maybe they would vote for Cass.
Well, here's another scenario. The jury is just made up of completely of Lisi. Anyway. And then this person wasn't a finalist, but so close. And it's always the Great Survivor what if, that if Colby had just taken Keith Fammy to the finals, he wins. If Cass takes Keith Fammy to the finals, maybe that's the ticket.
It's been so long that I don't remember why he was objectionable. So I'm going to give it an incomplete. I don't know if I can answer that.
Yeah, so I think amongst people who made it to a final jury, I do not like Cass's chances. So I think Heather nailed it. Somehow she's got to drag Colton there as her GOAT.
Okay, wait. If we're going outside the people that made the finals, though, I have some other names she could beat.
All right, let's see. I'm dubious.
First of all, here's the absolute easiest one: Brandon Hance.
She loses to Brandon Hance easily.
You're insane, Heather. Back me up.
I don't know about that.
So on South Pacific, people were afraid that Brandon Hance would beat them in front of a jury.
No, I think they were afraid that he would literally beat them, hit them with things. That's what they were saying.
They voted him out when he gave up his immunity. He was, the guy who was always talking about being honorable and stuff. So as long as he's not driven over the edge by Philip, apparently he's a likable guy.
Who was driven over the edge by the presence of another female in a bikini on an island.
Yeah.
Oh, look, I don't like Brandon Hance, but I literally have read that people thought in the moment, through the fog of war that was going on in South Pacific, that Brandon was a jury threat.
It's been a little while, but I can't see that.
Yeah. Now here's one thing though. Cass basically becomes Philip and drives Brandon insane, right?
And Brandon gets removed from the final tribal just because he tried to stab somebody.
Yeah, or somebody starts asking Brandon a question he doesn't like, and then, yeah, he's just like goes off, and I don't know what in the final tribal council he'd throw in a fire, but yeah, he'd find something.
And then Cass would smirk at him one too many times, and probably steam would come out of his ears.
Okay, so I got another name. Shannon from Survivor Nicaragua. The season I try to forget.
Survivor Shannon.
Actually, I believe she could beat probably most of Nicaragua because that just was such a deplorable season. But let's go with Shannon.
I think Cass would fit in perfectly with Nicaragua. Like she missed her opportunity, right?
She was miscast.
It's the only way they could have made that season work.
I think I forgot about 5, 6 of that cast.
Yeah, so Survivor Shannon would probably, before Cass asks any questions, I just need to know, are you a lesbian?
Yeah. So Shannon was the homophobic, probably racist guy who was voted out in, I think, the third episode?
I think he was the first of his tribe, but not the first person.
This sounds vaguely familiar.
And here's how bad he was. In a tribe that needed physical strength, he was a buff male. And they're like, no. I don't care how much we need strength. You need to leave.
God.
I'll give Cass that. Yeah, she might have done some strategic stuff there. So there's the bar, huh?
All right. Going in the opposite direction from the buff, strong males. Could she beat Chet from Fans vs. Favorites?
Not even close.
No.
Chet would sweep her. But here's the thing, Chet made it, almost to the merge, right? He somehow outlasted people despite his suckage. Largely because I think people kind of liked him to a degree. So if he somehow makes it all the way to the final tribal, he's like the lovable loser.
Chet was dragged to the merge, almost literally, given one of those challenges.
But no, I don't think Cass could beat Chet. And there you go. I think there we just said all we need to say about Cass's chance of winning Survivor. She could not beat Chet.
But she could beat Colton.
She could beat Colton. So that's her path for victory, because honestly, I think Cass has a good chance of coming back. So she just needs to be cast on a season with Survivor Shannon, Colton, and Chet, and just kind of see where the chips lay. Form an alliance, maybe, even.
It needs to be the, what someone proposed on the AV Club, the villains versus villains season. And then maybe she stands a chance.
But, I mean, for all her flaws, of which there are many, I think she's good TV. I think her crazy moves, while very difficult to defend in front of a jury, have made this season better.
Absolutely. It actually really annoys me that people are so horrible to her on Twitter because, first of all, it's a game. And if she hadn't flipped at the merge, this season wouldn't be half as amazing as it is right now. So I don't get it. Would you have preferred that Cass didn't flip and we were watching a total pagong where, Sarah and Morgan and Alexis are just taking out Tony and his little group? That'd be boring. I mean, this season has been great, partly because of the first move that Cass made in flipping.
What do you think, Heather?
Well, the Brains tribe maybe wouldn't have looked as pathetic, for one thing.
That is true.
But I think the most interesting thing about that is that if that had happened, I wonder what would have happened with Tony. I wonder if he would have been able to make those moves that he's been making.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see a Tony of strength versus a Tony with his back against the wall, which we might be seeing next week. But, would Tony suddenly have gotten Spencer's edit, and Spencer would suddenly be getting Tony's?
Well, that's exactly what I was suggesting, because, Spencer was, again, was scraping the bottom of the barrel from the very beginning, and Tony never really had to be in that position. So you flip it around, and who knows? Maybe Spencer would have actually been making those kinds of big moves that, he seems to think he's capable of that we've never seen.
Now, the first thought is if Cass doesn't make that, then it's a begonging. But I think ultimately Cass is always going to do something like this. So she didn't do it then. She was going to flip on her alliance at some point, so we probably would have gotten some craziness. It's just it would have really sucked if the final four was Jeremiah, Morgan, Sarah, Spencer.
Yeah, boo.
And that was apparently on the table.
Wouldn't have had Sarah's facial expressions from the jury.
Right there, I think you nailed it. That's why we need to send thank you tweets to Cass for giving us Jury Sarah.
Yeah, the new Eliza.
All right, well, I want to thank you for coming on the show, Heather. I hope it was a good time. Hopefully I let you talk a couple times.
Oh, no, it's been fun.
How very unlike you, Andy, to let someone else talk.
Well, it's just that I don't like to let talk, I think, is the deal.
With good reason.
But yeah, so hopefully we can have you on again if your children cooperate.
Well, we'll see about that.
And we will see you around the AV Club.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Okay, well, that was a fun little discussion, and we have one last thing to do, and last time we'll do this. Prediction time.
Thankfully, the last time.
We're bound to get something right this week. Just like we totally guessed that Trish was on the hook today.
Yeah, nailed it.
So we got a few things to predict here. Obviously, we got to pick who's going to win this season. That's the big one. But who's going to be in the final two with them? And what's the path? Loosely, what do we think the boot order is going to be? Where do you want to start?
Okay, well, let's start with the easiest possible thing. Cass is in the final two.
Yeah, I just don't see a scenario at this point who would take her out. I think, as you said, Wu would be the only person that might. I guess here's the scenario. If Spencer wins immunity at Final Four and everybody else is afraid of Tony's, idol bluff, then it's Wu or Cass. But I think then it's just Wu, right?
Then it's Wu, yeah. So really, there's no way that Cass is not in the final.
Yeah, nobody's pulling a Colby here. They're taking her. These three guys are doing it. And also, Wu's not making the final, so we don't even have to worry about that. He's the only guy that would do it. Either Spencer or Tony are going to make the final, and either one of those guys is going to make sure Cass is sitting next to them. It's kind of unfortunate. We're getting a final two, and we're going to get a final two that explicitly shows why they got rid of final twos.
Yeah, and it's funny too because I think you and I would both agree that we would love to see a Spencer versus Tony final tribal. And you could have that in a final three, but there's no way those two will take each other in a final two.
I know. It's like they finally gave us what we wanted, and we're going to be like, damn, why'd they give that to us? Because we've gotten like that kind of mano-a-mano type matchup. It's just with like a forgettable third, right? Like you had, Sandra Parvati. You had, Ozzy Yule. But there was also another person there. They just didn't matter. Right. And now it's going to be like once that the penultimate tribal council is decided, we'll know who have won this game. Like there's not going to be anything for the actual final tribal council except to see how badly they tear into Cass, which will have its own entertainment.
Right. And I think we mentioned last week that I'd be disappointed if I didn't see the end to Tony's story. I would be disappointed if we didn't see the end to Cass's story. And we are definitely going to see the end to Cass's story.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I think maybe even midway through this season, I threw this out there, that the way people, like the contestants are reacting to Cass on Twitter, maybe suggests that none of them got to spend any time at Ponderosa with her. So I think that's it.
Or maybe they did right at the very end and they're really pissed off about it. No, that's not it. She's definitely in the final too.
Okay, so who goes out next? Who's going out at, it's so hard to puzzle it out. So who's winning? Let's go there and then reverse engineer it. So
here's my favorite thing that was proposed by an AV Clubber, and I'm sorry I'm not mentioning you because I totally forgotten who it was. The, it was the hoped for prediction basically, was that they get to final three, it's Spencer, it's Tony, and it's Cass, and then Cass wins immunity.
I think that was
gets
Matt.
To pick. It wasn't Matt again?
Yeah.
Oh, Matt, you're on fire this week. So then Cass gets to pick which of the two goes to Final Tribal with her and basically hands them $1 million. And that would be amazing to watch.
And what's interesting is I don't know which way she would go. Like you'd think that's where she's finally getting her jury with Tony, but maybe Tony pisses her off that week and she just goes Spencer. Cause that's something she would do.
I lean towards her taking Tony in that scenario. It's not going to happen anyway. She's not going to win the final immunity, but I lean towards her taking Tony there.
Yeah, and if we got there, then we'd get to what other people in the AV Club has talked about. It's like we get to see her versus Tony, and she's so excited that she's taken Jersey Russell Hantz to the end, and then she finds out that she's Russell Hantz. Except that I've already decided that Russell Hantz would beat her in a landslide. So who's winning, Spencer or Tony?
I think Tony will win it, and I feel like I should knock on all the wood right now, because I'd rather see Tony win it. I want to see his game win, just because it's been so interesting. Again, the only thing that's going to throw it off is if he doesn't make the final. Mm-hmm. If he makes the final, he wins.
Yeah, because he's not making it against Spencer.
Right.
I think Spencer wins. I think it's happening. So many things seem to be pointing in that direction from the edit, and it makes me sad. And I should add that, like, we've gone so far on this and, like, you know, kind of raising the objections, I think people are starting to think, like, we're anti-Spencer. It's just Spencer isn't interesting. There's been people who've won their way. Those people are perfectly legitimate. What we don't agree with is people that are trying to make Spencer sound like, you know, he's Kim Spradlin or Boston Rob, like master strategist. And it's like, no, Spencer is the underdog who survives the infighting and wins the key immunities. He's Danny Boatwright. He's, you know, the Sepia. And, you know, that's a perfectly fine way of winning. It's not interesting.
Yeah, it's not that he won't deserve a win. It's just that we'd be disappointed to see that win.
Especially for us, in that immunity wins are, like, the least interesting parts for me. Like, do you even really, like, are you even all that invested when you watch, like, immunity challenges anymore?
Only if I need to see a person I'm rooting for win, and they do win. That's the only time it ever...
Yeah, or we want to see somebody lose. But it's like, I don't even care about challenges that much. It's like, it's a necessary important component of Survivor. I don't want to see them go, but I think part of it's because they become so watered down that it's just like, it doesn't feel like achievement as much. Like, if, for Spencer to win, he'll have ended up winning 4 challenges in a row, 5 total. Like, that should be amazing. But challenges aren't what they used to be.
No, and challenges, like you said, that's not the reason we watch the show. So it's almost like if Ozzy had won the show, I would have been disappointed. Like, that's not the gameplay that I want to see winning.
Yeah. And it's so ironic is that that's what Spencer's doing. He's being Ozzy, you know? Probably a more likable one amongst his, you know, competitors. But at the same time, like, Ozzy would have won in front of the jury in South Pacific. He just would have. As much as we don't like him. And I put this out on the AV Club. It's like, I think Spencer, the viewer, would be kind of like alongside us, being like, what's this guy doing? He's not a strategist. Like, I don't think Spencer wants to be playing the game he's been forced to play. But, you know, he's been good at it.
Yeah, to his credit, he is adapting.
Yeah, he's formed bonds with people, notably Tony. And yeah, I think he's gonna win and that'll totally explain and justify the major hero edit he's been giving. A hero edit that, again, I'm gonna add, has won a lot of otherwise, you know, quote unquote strategist, smart, you know, Survivor watchers that suddenly are like, yeah, he's doing things. It's like, kind of, I suppose. He's doing the things that a lot of Spencer's fans aren't usually fans of.
Yeah, he's made plenty of mistakes along the way. This is what annoys me. Don't just let him off the hook because he's quote unquote had his back against the wall all season. Some of that was
of his own doing.
Fault.
Yes.
Yeah, it's his own doing. So if he had, and again, it's not all on Spencer, but if he had managed to keep Cass loyal at that first merge vote, then he's in a position of power. He doesn't. If he had gotten Jeffra to flip by showing her his idol, then he's in a position of power. He doesn't.
Woo to flip and stay flipped last week. He's good to go.
Exactly. He had multiple opportunities and didn't capitalize on them. So it's not like he's been totally in a weak position the entire game. He's had opportunities to seize power and never did.
Mm-hmm. And yes, some of that is the people he's been playing with. But, you know, Tony's been playing with those people. He's been able to dictate every single vote this season. He has not yet cast a vote for somebody who did not go home that night. But all that said, I think my prediction is Spencer wins. So the way I think that happens is I think Wu goes out at final 4 because Spencer has won immunity. And I think that they believe Tony's idol bluff. And also I think both Cass and Spencer would prefer to remove Wu. Or at least Cass would. I think Spencer actually wants to get rid of Tony. And then Spencer wins again at final 3. And obviously he and Cass vote out Tony. So
if he wins, good for him. But I'm kind of hoping that he's getting basically the Malcolm edit where he gets right up to the end and he's so quote unquote likable and then he doesn't win.
But what I am predicting is it'll probably be interesting anyway because that's what kind of season this has been. So next week's the last podcast of the season.
It is. We should have some sort of guest on. Maybe a recurring
That's
guest.
right, because I think you and I have basically said all we need to say about the season, so we need some other perspectives, including yours, dear listener. So please send us some emails, send us some tweets, send us some voicemails. And if Wu wins, we've actually already booked a guest.
if Wu does win, we actually have someone who's going to come on and berate us and laugh at us and mock us.
I believe that would be Ross Wolf, if I'm not mistaken. But yes,
that was the name.
Send us your tweets, Purple Rock Pod. Send us your emails, purplerockpodcast@gmail.com. Send us your voicemails on Skype at jrpurplerock, or leave a comment on the blog, purplerockpodcast.wordpress.com. Got any more llama sounds to send us out?
Oh, I'll hit the llama soundboard I've got right next to me.
I think it'll sound like our theme music.